All right. Well, welcome everyone to our first webinar within this group, the Ask and It Is It Given group. And you're all pioneers. Thank you very much for joining this group that I really started just a few weeks ago. And the intention of the group was to explore a few ideas. And the way I'm going to say, and it's probably worth looking at the intention of this group and for today's webinar, where we're discussing the art of allowing, or how we allow that which we have created. So the premise, and some of this was written in the description of this group, is we start with you create your own reality. And you create it with thought. So you create your own reality, you create it with thought. And if you are experiencing it, that means that you are thinking it. If you are not experiencing it, then you are not thinking it. And that's interesting to know, especially around things that we want to create or things that we desire. Now, this is not something that you learn to do. So even in your participation in the group, your participation in this webinar, there won't be something that you'll be taught how to do, because this is something that is happening all the time. It is something that you are always doing. So the purpose of the group, and it'll be the purpose in all the webinars that we ultimately have, is really about exploring how is that so? So how is that so? I'm creating my own reality. I'm creating it with thought. How is that so? How does that work? And you, in the course of that and the exploring of that, what will happen is we'll describe it, we'll clarify it. We're really talking about what it is that is happening all the time. And so you're always creating your own reality, wanted or unwanted. And you're always doing that with thought. The one thing is that you may not be doing it deliberately. You may not be doing it deliberately. You may not be doing it consciously. And that doesn't mean that you are not doing it. So that's just in terms of a premise of the group and how we're looking. So everything you'll see in my posts and as people interact within the group, it really is about looking at that and how is that so. And we're most interested, the value is in the understanding of the principles that make that work. What's the truth behind that? Then we are in all of the bright ideas and the various techniques and the various conclusions that people draw from what is true. Right? So once we start to notice what is true, then we will often have our own favorite ways of doing different things. Some of you, how many people are, that you know how to ride a bike? So you know how to ride a bike, you understand what balance is, and if somebody else was riding a bike, I'm sure you would have a lot to tell them that you would want to tell them about it, and none of it's going to help. So none of it is going to help until they get and they understand and that they are grounded in what balance is. And so once they get what balance is, they actually don't need your tips. So once anyone gets what that is, they can, they have everything they need to be able to do that on their own. And so in our inquiry and exploration, there's a huge value in exploring what is true, how does this work, and that once we all get that, we can use that in by ourselves without having to follow prescriptions, without requiring a long list of practices, without having to do certain things each day in order to accomplish this. Once you distinguish it for yourself, you can trust yourself to know what to do. So I thought today what we would do is I would just ramble for a little bit. So I would talk for a little while, and then hopefully spark some questions. And we may already have some of that sparked based on some conversations that have already gone on within the group. There have been some great interactions on a few posts. So there may be already kind of questions like that. And then we'll do is within a few minutes is we'll get into that. We'll go to some questions. And then from there, we'll carry on for the rest of the session. So a couple of things. I know when I wrote this event, a part of the visual that I put up on it is I'm giving you this 3-step, I say steps, there are 3 areas which really come from the teachings of Abraham. So Abraham Hicks, it is a channeled consciousness by a woman named Esther Hicks. If you know me, you know about Abraham. I could rarely go more than an hour without a quote from Abraham. So if we're ever talking, you probably have heard me talk about Abraham Hicks. If you're part of this group, you likely know about Abraham Hicks. So a few basics, and so that I think would be good for us to get grounded in. And so I'll just remind us of these, and then we'll sort of go into that from there. So whenever you're talking about creating your own reality, and I say this in the group description, that idea of you create your own reality. So there's this you. Who is this you that we are talking about? And that's important, because a misunderstanding of the you that we are talking about can quickly sort of take you off in an unproductive direction within this conversation. A lot of times within law of attraction, there is a very simplistic view about this. And if you're familiar with this,
the rest of the option.
Oh, sorry, I'll just make sure we're all muted. If you're familiar with things like The Secret or some of these things around law of attraction, they're often a very simplistic view that speaks to, close your eyes and wish, and then, if you wish for a car, then, the car eventually will show up. Or if you put a vision board up and put a bigger house or something like that, and ultimately this will come to be. So there's oftentimes these types of teachings, practices, techniques that are often shared within law of attraction. So that there's something there around who are you when we say you create your own reality. And Abraham is very clear. Who you are is pure source energy consciousness. Who you are is pure source energy consciousness. And a part of you is focused into this physical body. So that's important. So when we say you create your own reality, who you are is pure source energy consciousness. A part of you is focused into this physical body, while the greater part of you remains non-physically focused. So most of who you are, let's say all that you are, only a tiny aspect of that consciousness is actually showing up, focused through this physical body into this physical reality. while the greater part of that consciousness remains non-physically focused. Now, I remember I've had several conversations with Abraham at the workshops, and one of the things I said to them is, you keep talking about us and our inner being, and me and my inner being, and it's like you split me up into two. So, and that can get confusing, because when Abraham refers to your inner being, they refer to who you really are. And who you really are, all that you are, is this pure source energy consciousness that is focused into this physical body. So there's the you that's here, and then there's the you that would be all of it. And these are two different perspectives, and these are essential to creation. If we're talking about creating anything, what we are talking about when we are talking about creation is we are talking about a perceived reality. So it could be that a more accurate way to say that you create your own reality is that how we could say is that you create your own perception of reality. So you create your own perception of reality. You do it with thought. Maybe you're thinking, oh, perception of reality. Well, that's not as good as how you titled this originally. You said that we create our own reality. And now you've changed it into you create your own perception of reality. And I'm going to suggest for you, there is no difference. So for you, the reality that you are aware of is the one you perceive. And the only reality that you in this physical body will ever be aware of is the reality that you perceive. So the cool thing about that is you really don't have to kind of worry about any other reality, because no other reality will actually ever matter to you. So the one that matters to you, the one that you get to experience, the one that you get to enjoy in this physical existence is the reality that you are perceiving. And that's the only one that we're really talking about. Now, okay, so that is important in terms of understanding who you are when we say you create your own reality. And then Abraham articulates 3 steps to creation. And the way that works is you ask, step 1, you ask. Step 2, it is given. Step 3, you receive or allow. These are 3 steps, 3 parts, and what they all are thinking. They're all thinking. It took me a number of years. If any of you are familiar with my hot seat conversations with Abraham, and if you're not, you can ask me. I have a private YouTube playlist where you can listen to them. But over the course of years, it took me a little while to keep asking Abraham, but wait a minute. The way I understand this now is there is actually no doing in it, right? So, because at first I thought that step 1 was this thing that I have to do, and then, step 2 is this thing that source does, and then step 3 is another thing I have to do. So if I'm going to create my reality, I have to do these things, right? The more you looked at what this is, so ask. This one was a little tricky because in the beginning, early days, and if you're familiar with things like The Secret and all of that, the ask part is envision. It's like you need to ask. You've got to write it down. You got to put up a picture of it. You got to do something, right? You got to ask for what you want. Right? And that isn't quite right. So the asking is happening all of the time while you are in this perspective. The asking is not something that you are doing. It is happening. It is happening all of the time. So when you don't have enough money, you ask for more. Now, I don't mean that you literally do that, but you're in an experience of noticing that the bills are more than the money you have. And from this experience, an asking arises. You don't do that. It happens. Right? So that just happens. An asking arises from this. So we in physical, unlike us in non-physical, although even that's not totally accurate, but the one difference in physical is that we are in a contrasting environment. What does that mean? A contrasting environment is a duality. We are in a perceived duality. And so perceived duality means that there is a thing and not a thing. There is the presence of it and the absence of it. So in everything that you experience, you're in a relationship or the absence of a relationship. For you to be in a relationship, you must know what it is to not be in a relationship. For you to be wealthy, there must be poverty. For you to experience abundance, there's also an experience of scarcity. So there is a contrast in this physical experience, and that contrast is what causes an asking. So the asking is happening automatically. It isn't something you do. It's not something that you have to go around looking for pictures of the things that you want. You don't have to write down, you got to write it down, and you got to be specific, because otherwise the universe, because the universe is so stupid, wouldn't know what you're asking for, right? So unless you write it down, and you wrote it down specifically, how crazy is that? We're talking about infinite intelligence, and you need to spell out to infinite intelligence what you want. You've been created by infinite intelligence. I think it can figure out what you want, right? So when it comes to the asking happens, and the asking is unique to you. In other words, what Tony wants, or Susan wants, or Ellen wants, or Michael wants is not what I want. So if I'm working and I do certain kinds of work, we're each of us unique. We've come with different intentions focused into this physical existence. And so I do work and things that I enjoy, and then there are things that I don't enjoy. That's not at all like how it would be for Susan or Tony or anybody else. They may really enjoy things that I don't enjoy. So these preferences are very unique. Again, we now get to this part about perspective. So the perspective within this contrast is unique to us. So the part that I wouldn't want and the parts that I would want or I would prefer are going to be specific to me. And without doing anything, but simply perceiving and being in that experience, an asking is evoked within me energetically. And so, and when you ask, it is given. So in other words, the moment it is asked, it is answered immediately. It's not answered eventually. It is given immediately as potential and possibility. The energy, the essence of what you've asked for, the potential of it, the possibility of it is answered instantly. In the moment that you want it, it is given. But you don't have it. Hang on a second. I want more money. There's not enough money. I want more money. And now you're telling me it's given. Yes, it is given. The potential and possibility of that is given. So this is where step 3. So the step 2 is also something that is happening. And you're not even in it's not even your work. Now that's a little tricky because I said that who you are is all of it, right? So, but that answer, think about it like this. You are, you're not in a relationship, you want to be in a relationship, or your relationship isn't great and you want it to be better. You know, if you think about there is something unwanted, something unwanted, and it's like, this is boring, this is routine, this is just terrible, right? It's like not very satisfying. Well, what the universe hears, who you really are, pure positive energy, is only conscious of the aspects to be created. It is only aware of the wanted, not the unwanted aspect. So when you know that something is, boring or routine, what is equally lit up or active is I want more excitement, I want more fun. When I am aware of scarcity, what is also activated is an awareness of abundance, not for me, but in general, if you think about it in the duality of it. To be focused on scarcity also activates an equal counter of abundance. And pure source energy, all that you are, answers and becomes all of that. So what you are asking for in the absence of, really, mostly. Most of our creating is done in step 1. Most of our creating is done in our walking around, sifting and sorting, and mostly seeing what we don't want. Today, we see a lot of stuff. If you look out into the world, if you're perceiving the world as most people, you probably see a lot of conflict. You see a lot of that. And what's evoked in all of that environment is a more loving world, a more caring world. Like, this is all of the asking, let's call it the mass consciousness asking that is happening globally, right? So each of us is asking individually. But oftentimes there could be mass consciousness asking as well, right? So that's kind of cool to know. That's a bit of a sideline. We can explore that probably on a future webinar. So you ask, it is given, and then step 3, which is kind of what was the premise of this, is I must allow that which I've asked for. And if you think of all these as thinking, right? So in step 1, my perception is of unwanted, what I do not want, the absence of something in there. In order for me to receive, I must allow my mind to change. Receiving really is about allowing your mind to change. Because remember, you create your own reality and you create it with thought. Well, for you to experience a reality that is different than this reality, you will experience a reality that is different than this one when you think differently. It's the only way that you'll experience a reality that is different than this one. You will be thinking differently in that new reality. And that is the part where step 3, I must be willing to allow my mind to change. And to allow your mind to change is something that only you can do. There is no assertion in the universe. You cannot be made to think anything. So you are the creator of your own reality because you are the only one who can think for you. And you cannot be made to think anything. I can talk here about, a great way of thinking. Here's a better way of thinking. You should think differently. You should think like this. And you can smile at me and sort of nod like that. And you don't have to think any of it. And no matter how compelling I am, no matter how forceful I am, you are the creator of your own reality. You just sit there and smile at me and don't change your mind. You just keep thinking how you want to think. Now, we've seen the power of this with human beings, great human beings. If anybody's ever heard of Viktor Frankl, he was he was a Jewish man in the concentration camps. Auschwitz, I think he was in. I can't remember which concentration camp. But he later went on to become, so obviously he survived it, but he went on to become this great, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and was kind of in the world of psychology and that kind of thing. But what he discovered when he was in the camps, and he wasn't the first to do this, lots of others have too, but his situation is so extreme that he realized at one point, I think the way he wrote it or the way he said it is he realized he was more free than the prison guards. Interesting. So in other words, he was more free in his mind. And no matter what was going on and no matter what that situation was, he had an ability to focus any way he wanted. So he could be in a prison cell and sunshine could come in through a tiny window that is so high up you couldn't even see out. But he could be in that and enjoy that there is sunshine rather than darkness. So he could perceive any way he wanted. He could perceive, he could experience that when they did get food, how great it was that they had it. So this is a very extreme example of how there is no assertion. You couldn't even be put into prison and be made to think anything. If you're familiar with, the story of Nelson Mandela, here's a guy who spent how many years in prison, and how was he able to be released from prison and not feel vengeance? He came out of prison to create a new South Africa, to build a South Africa where everyone could be part of it. And if you think about the years in prison by the people who persecuted him just because he's Black, just because of what he said, how could he not come out and say, all right, now I'm going to be president and you're all going to get yours? Because he did not let that in his mind. He was in prison, but he was not in prison in his mind. And so that's the kind of power you have to be, creating your own reality, living your own reality. Let me pause and open a little bit. For questions, what we could do is we could either do the typical hands up. If you hit participants, you can put up your hands within the participant box. by clicking a button, or unmute and we'll fight it out. So one way or another. And one more as well is if you wanted to type it into the chat box. So any questions about what I've said so far, or really from anything? It could be anything, any of the posts we've had in the group, anything like that. Someone start us off. Yeah, Tony's hands up. Hey, Tony.
One thing that you brought up today related to the second part of, and it'll be given, right, is in potential and possibility. It's like the possibility of what you want is there, and as my thinking changes, this is just, I'm trying to solidify the formless of what you described that has been happening, you know, in the past. But until my thinking changes, it's not a possibility for me to create what I want. But as my thinking changes, then those fresh new thoughts come in, and something occurs to me that I need to do, or I need to open, you know, something to allow it to happen. And it becomes okay with me that I do those things because I've changed from the inside. That's what the allow part starts to manifest itself in a doing, I guess you would say. It just kind of occurs to you. It's not that I have to go do it. It's not a willpower doing. Let me put that word in there, because willpower and allowing are two completely different things.
Yeah, you've made many, several really good points in there, and important points. The action involved in creating something, right? This is an interesting part where, you know, Abraham says, and I'm starting to see more and more, you did not come here to create through action. You did not come here to create through action. You came here to create with thought. You came here to create with your mind. And you intended to use action to enjoy that which you've created with your mind. So if we look at this, the creation always happens in your mind with thought. The way to see that is, it is as a seed, right? So the creation happens in your mind with thought, like the seed is planted, right? So there could be no creation that does not happen that way. Many on the call are familiar with three principles and grounded in three principles. Sydney Banks. And what was the missing link? He wrote a book. He called the book The Missing Link. What was the missing link? Thought, right? Yeah. So the missing link was thought. And what he said, and which kind of relates to here, right? You ask, it is given, then you must allow. What are you allowing? You must allow thought. Because when formless expresses itself into form, this might be another thing. Everything you see is simply an expression. Everything you see is spiritual. Everything you see is energy. Everything you see is formless expressing itself. Mm-hmm. And Sid Banks said the missing link between formless and form is thought. So that is how formless expresses into form, is via thought. Sid also said, look around you, he said, it's all thought. Interesting. Look around you, it's all thought. It's all made of thought. We live and experience nothing but thought, right? That is all that there is. Now, the way I joke sometimes with clients, the way I joke about this is I'll say, they'll talk about, their bad boss, or they'll talk about, whatever. So sometimes when I have those conversations, I'll say, well, let's pause for a minute. So this boss of yours, so kind of go down a path of where are they exactly? Well, they're in the office at the corner. Well, they may be there, but right now you and I are talking, where is this boss, right? So eventually people start to see this boss, right, is in your mind. And I say, so now there may or may not be a boss out there. I don't know. I'm not suggesting, right? So there may or may not be an actual boss in a corner office. But the only one you know of, the only one that you're dealing with, is the one that's in your mind, constructed of thought. So now that you tell me you have a problem with your boss, this is really important, because what you have a problem with is the boss that you have constructed with thought in your mind. That one you've got a problem with. So now we can work with it, right? Now there's something we can work with. Yeah.
I'm thinking of a story. I don't remember the culture that it comes from, but it was two monks that were going to cross a river, and there was a pretty woman there on the side, and she couldn't wait to cross, and so one of them carries the woman across, and she goes on about her bay, and the other guy looks at him and says, I thought we wasn't supposed to do that. And he said, well, I put her down way back there. You still carrying her, Well, he was carrying her in her mind. Yeah, so it's always the thinking that we're carrying around won't let it go, whether it's good or bad. Yeah, but the possibility, another thing that really distinguishes is until you understand the you that you're talking about, okay? Yeah, that formless part.
Yes.
Okay, has to do with the source of your thinking that you're listening to. And when you're linked, three principles we talk about: wisdom, where that little quiet, respectful, maybe even wordless nudging that that compared to the loud, forceful, boisterous chatterbox that's up there, well, that's not the you we're talking about. That's the one that wants, a stack of money or a wheelbarrow full of gold, or whatever it is. Yeah, that's besides the point. Yeah, so it's where's the source of your thinking coming from that you're creating your perception of reality with.
Yeah. That's really good. And what you point to is that the distinction is always in feeling. It's the only way you can tell is in feeling, because the thought is thought, and it also seems like thought, but there's a feeling to some thought versus other thought. And who you are is pure source energy, that infinite intelligence. There is that intelligence has a different characteristic to it as an idea comes than the way it feels when I desperately can't figure out how I'm going to make more money. And then I figure maybe I should sign up for this $10,000 course about Facebook ads, because that'll surely save me. like in the desperation of all of that, the feeling in it would tell you, who is that thought coming from? Where was that thought generated? And also the desperation telling you what energy is the basis from which such a thought arose. Did it arise from more abundance, or did it arise from my desperation and lack? Because that idea will perpetuate that energy. So I'm in lack, I've got this idea, I'll be $10,000 poorer is what I'll be once I sign up for that course, and nowhere near closer to abundance. Thank you, Tony. Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hi there. Nice to be here. This is a really lovely thing to be a part of.
Great.
Um,
Thanks for joining.
yeah, so I'd like to speak a little bit and ask a little bit about this experience of contrast, and kind of how we can move from experiences of distress into the ease and allowing. I I'm living in a environment that's has some incredible contrast for me. I am someone who's quite sensitive on a sensory level to sound, um, loud things, and I have times in a day where it's it, I'm like it's like I'm being plummeted
Mm,
by what the environment around, and I'm aware, like I'm starting to be aware, like, oh, this is really interesting, and seeing the opportunity in it. But what comes up for me, and I'm also in this period where I'm starting to feel out, okay, what's a better, more supportive environment for me to move to. I'm needing to find a new place to live. So what happens for me at times is I can get very triggered by the sounds of the trucks and the uh, what's the banging, and there's sort of a lot of distress and a feeling of like that fight flight thing that comes up in me, and I'm wanting to find a way to how to feel into, like, what is the best way to just like to meet that experience. You can hear the roosters probably. um, they're a better part. I don't mind them so much. Um, uh, you know, I don't want to repress that distress reaction, but I'm like, okay, how can I learn to be in relation to the challenge, um, that can really test me, and then like I do have some opportunities for a new home presenting, but I'm noticing they're not really what I want, and I'm just like, okay, how do we play with this? How do we
mhm,
work
mhm.
with this? Do I, like you, I liked hearing you say that I don't have to figure it out. Like,
Right.
can I trust that the greater source knows what I need, and just to kind of let go into that? So these are
Good.
some of the pieces. Yeah.
Good. 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 Yeah. There's so who you are from that source energy. Here's all that you ask for, and remember that the asking happens as all those pieces where you are like, oh, I can't stand this noise, and why can't there be some peace and quiet around here, and I want an ability to focus, and I want a place that is, more space or less space or whatever that is. So who you are knows what you want, and becomes the Abraham language, becomes the vibrational equivalent of that. That is the the energy of that possibility and that potential. It is what you expand to. Now, I'll say a little bit more. The so and next, for you to receive is you are going to match that. This is a little bit about kind of where we're going here. right? So there is a what you want, and it is a different being or state or energy than where you are. Where you are has an irritation and an aggravation and a distraction about it and a lack of focus, right? Like there's a state of being, that is one way, and what you want is something else. And that being that you are, the given, becomes in the state of being that you desire. Because, let me explain, that everything you want is because you believe you will feel better in the having of it. Everything you want is because you believe you will feel better in the having it. It is an energetic longing. It is an energetic longing to feel better. Now, this is not coming from this personal you, physical you here. What you are getting in this feeling is a desire to be who you really are. It is a desire, a calling to be who you are. And when you are in this moment, when you are not all that you are, you will feel it. And then our mind goes into this, what I want, right? So the reason that I am not all that I am is because there's too much noise around here. And the reason I'm not all that I am is because I don't have enough space to be all that. Right? So so we in physical form make it specific and physical. But the desire itself and the answering of it is an energetic state of being. And that is given instantly. It is the source of you. So through your experience, you have become more. Through that experience, you've become more. And now, this kind of even fits with Tony and when we were talking about path. The part about, so how do I get there, is about feeling your way there. It's feeling your way there rather than thinking your way there. So I want to feel my way to all that I've become rather than think my way to a better person, think my way to a more, I want the mindset of a rich person. Like that would be the thinking thing, right? But I want to feel my way there. And your inner being, all that you are, guides you by the path of least resistance, calling and calling and calling you toward all that you are. And the guidance is so simple and perfect. In Three Principles, those of you in Three Principles, you know this thing is like you feel your thinking, right? Everybody's heard that thing, right? You feel your thinking. But then on the other hand, in 3P, they'll also talk about, but thought is neutral. Wait, you're feeling your thinking, but then there's also thought is neutral. Let's look at what you're actually feeling. So were it not for this inner being, pure source energy, high vibration, that is you, were it not for that, I'm going to call it that standard, then you could never feel a deviation away from it, right? If you were right now living in, it was 20, I don't know, people are US and Canada and everywhere, but 21 degrees Celsius, 72 Fahrenheit, something like that. If that was the only temperature there was, would you know it? You couldn't know it. There wouldn't be a temperature. The only reason you know what 21 degrees is, or 72 Fahrenheit, is because you've felt the deviation from it. It's the only reason you even know what it is, right? So what does our inner being do? Is when you are thinking in a way that is in alignment with all that you are and all that you desire, it feels good. When you are thinking in a way that is in alignment with all that you desire, which means all that you've become, then it feels good. If you think in opposition to that, it will feel bad. I want more money is the start, right? If I think I can get it, I've seen that. There's lots of people who've done the kind of work I do and they make more money, right? So that will start to feel good. Yeah, but I don't think I could do it. I've never done it. I really, you know, and I don't even know, like in the kind of business I'm in, it's kind of, actually I've read about it. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to get clients. But so now with that thinking, I'm thinking against myself and my desire. That's what you're feeling, right? So your inner being is guiding you to all that you want by the path of least resistance, but it's what it is you will feel it. So as you allow thinking that is in agreement and forwarding you and giving you those ideas and taking you the inspiration toward what you want, it feels good. And as you think against it, it will feel bad. How's that for perfect guidance? It's like if any of you as a child have ever played hot and cold, that game. It's kind of like everything you want is over here and you start moving and I go, you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're getting hotter, you're getting hot. The closer you get to it, you get warmer, hotter, hotter. That signal is telling you you're getting closer and closer. And as you distance from it, I say, oh, you're getting colder, you're getting colder. It means you are moving away from it. And that is what is happening with you and all that you want. You, in every moment, can feel, right? So as you're feeling anxiety and worry and concern and, you know, I might never find another place to live that's as good as this one or whatever it is, right? If that's where your mind goes, you will feel it instantly. And that feeling tells you you're moving away from what you want in your mind. And then, of course, you cannot create reality unless you do it first by a thought. Was that helpful, Sarah?
Yes, beautiful, lovely, really wonderful reflections.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I know we have another hand up, but also Ellen, you had a question earlier in the chat. I missed it, but it's up in there. Is Ellen still on? Did you want to unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? I think what you just said was all about that. You know how you allowing was the thinking, but that there's all the kinds of thinking. And so I think that helped me think about less thinking, more feeling. So I think that's good.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Yes. And that goes to sort of where Tony said is what's the difference between my inner being and wisdom and infinite intelligence feeding me a thought is that the feeling of that thought is, oh, I could do this, right? It's that kind of a thought, right? Versus the thought of, boy, $10,000 for a course on running Facebook ads. I don't know. Oh man, that's going to be hard to get that money. Wonder if it's going to be worthwhile, right? Like that feeling is just, yeah, totally off. So you can, once you pay attention, you increase the level of sensitivity you have to that feeling, your guidance becomes more pure, more easy. Okay, we are at the top of the hour. I'm willing, like Sue, if you, I know you have your hand up. Why don't, if we can, we'll do one more question, and then we'll close from there. I know if you need to drop off, go ahead. But thanks for joining. So Sue, you want to get you unmuted?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. I really feel like I've tumbled in down, like a portal opened, and I'm tumbling into something that's making a big shift. And that was that, and this may be where this call generation started, where that's something you posted from Seth really made a big impression on me. And that was assuming that it's at least as likely that there can be a positive outcome to
Nice.
whatever situation as there could be to a negative, that there will be a negative outcome. And that was like really, it was really the right time, because it's not the first time that's been suggested to me, but I have had such a commitment. I have had such a commitment to my negative outcome thinking that it has taken this many days of life to have enough allowance to be playing in this. And it is changing fucking everything. Like today, I gave the SBA an hour, which turned into an hour and 58 minutes on hold. And when my housemate came home halfway through, I said, yeah, I'm on endless hold with SBA. That's gonna they'll hang up on me. And as it came out of my mouth, that's gonna have they're gonna pick up, and I'm gonna get exactly what I need from them. And it's just like the shift happened in the moment. Is really kind of cool. And also there's something in my come from is I'm more connected to my values, to my integrity. I had a client attack me in email yesterday after I said to her, you know, I'm not responsible for how you feel. And she attacked me in email and said, well, fuck you. I don't want to have anything to do with you again. And it was really fine. It was really like, I was not only fine, but grateful. So it's just this, it's not just anything. It's a huge shift. And I don't really know if I have a question, Dominic, but if you've sparked anything you want to say.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Sue. And what I hear in all of that is this tremendous feeling of relief. It's what I'm hearing is this tremendous feeling of relief. And the thing about thought is that whenever you think a thought, like, and this sort of touches a little bit about, you know, this whole idea, like a lot of people get into thinking thought or thinking positive or changing their thinking, like, you know, kind of they go off into that tangent. And it's a really difficult way at it, and kind of, hard way at it, right? Remember that thought is coming. It is, in a way, you are a receiver of thought, right? So the thing is, though, the minute you start thinking a thought, that you are now activating that vibration or channel within you. So as you start to worry, you're on the worry channel. Right? So, you know, what if this doesn't work out and the whole thing fails, right? Well, when I have a little casual thought like that, it's not actually a big deal, right? I can actually steer off of it. But if I stay with it, like really, what would happen if this actually failed? And then what? Boy, I mean, I would lose this, and then my business would fall apart. Boy, eventually I'd lose the house. Like, and what happens is you get thinking that is all on that same channel. So you, after a few minutes, really, is you get into that, and there's a momentum of thought, which makes it impossible to get off of. You caught yourself in your story, the way I heard, is you were dialing a number, you sort of had a negative thought, it was going to go in the way that it was going to go, but you could catch really early on that I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to think that way. That's not a good way to set up this call. right? And that's the thing. And then when we look, you're creating your own reality. You're actually on the phone talking to people, giving off a presence and an energy that is, you're not going to help me, are you? You're going to be as bad as the last person I talked to. And this is going to be a complete waste of my time, isn't it? Right? This is everything that we communicate.
Right. How long is it going to be till you hang up on me? Yes, and go.
Right on. And then we go, oh my God, I can't believe it. It happened like last time or whatever. And we miss the whole, we created that. We created that. We zoomed into it. We were toned into it. We were giving off that energy. And then, of course, the reality is reflecting back to us in that same way. So I think we will close here. Thank you, everyone, for your participation on the very first webinar in our group. I look forward to more of these. And I look forward to your participation in the various posts with, you know, bring whatever questions that you have. And of course, any resources, anything that you're seeing that you come across, feel free to post and share in the group. All right. Have a great rest of the day and have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Dominic.
Thank you.